Excellent. Good afternoon and good evening, and wherever you are situated in this beautiful world that we live in right now. And today I have a very special guest, and I'll introduce her in a few moments. I've just learned how to say her surname, so hopefully I don't balls up her surname. I'll introduce her in a few moments. So, welcome to this very special episode of the Mindful Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Jason Cooper. I'm a sales strategist, sales coach. I help sales teams deliver better results as sales training coach. This series is all about insightful leadership. It's about gifted leaders who employ brilliant and unusual strategies to great effect. My guest today has an extraordinary job of and wonderful strategies, and she is extremely talented in what she does. And I recently spoke with her as a little chat a little while ago, and I went, wow, I'm so impressed by what Stacy Raske does, if that's the correct way of saying it. I've probably done it wrong anyway, but it doesn't matter. And I welcome you, and I really appreciate you coming on board.
Oh, thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here. And yeah, we did have such an amazing chat. It is Stacy Raske.
Stacy Raske. Did I got it wrong? No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It's okay.
It's okay. If I say Stacy, I won't get the surname wrong.
You're good.
Mine's easy. Mine's Cooper. So yours is Stacy, which is very easy. I just want to give a highlight everyone a little bit about you, but I'm only going to give a top level because I really want you to sort of elevate what you are all about and how your journey has begun. So Stacy, best-selling author, keynote speaker, Iraqi war veteran, international success coach and leadership mentor, business consultant. She has spent the last 5 years learning from her trauma and addiction to get that beautiful recovery, to deeply understand beliefs and boundaries and balance of how self-sabotage can work and how you can elevate that and anchor yourself, push that forward to success. She has just been awarded, I think, at your top 5, is it leadership? And you're absolutely incredibly gifted in that, because you're just behind Joe Dispenza, which is awesome, which is someone that I admire as well. And there's lots of other people. And you're not that far away from them. So from what you've done is absolutely phenomenal. And you have a best-selling book, Ambition, High Performing Alpha Woman, by leading them to shift intimidating and influential leaders from unlocking the full authenticity. And I think authenticity has been bounced around, but I think, and I know that authenticity means being yourself, and doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, but the more that you're authentic, then it shines through, and it really does. It shows a lot of trust, and it shows a lot of gratitude, and it shows a lot of inspiration. So I totally put my hat off you. So Stacy, look, if you can cast your mind back before you went in as being in the army, tell me a little bit of backstory before we go into the other areas of your life.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is a very juicy story, but I think, people who are able to step up into being in these leadership positions and sharing and empowering and inspiring others in a really authentic way, we come from challenge, we come from adversity, we come from trauma. I mean, and I agree with you. I was just as wow, to be honored with being behind people like Dr. Joe Dispenza, Deepak Chopra, Lisa Nichols, and here I am, number 5 on the mindful thought leaders to follow, leading us into a better 2021. And I was just like, what? That's amazing. So amazing. So yeah, it was really interesting. Even though I'm a war veteran, and I experienced trauma during my time in the military and time at war. As I leaned into my trauma recovery journey, I realized that it was actually the childhood trauma that set me up for PTSD, not so much the military stuff. Like, that was just kind of icing on the cake. So, and I'm such a avid learner that I'm all about get to the root. Let me really understand and address the real problem, not band-aiding symptoms like a lot of people do. And even I did early in my recovery journey. So it was understanding that, my parents were working with the toolkit that they had, but it was a lot of the instability as a kid. I moved around a lot, was exposed to different types of abuse, a lot of abandonment. I mean, even in high school, my mom decided to move again and I didn't. And I was like, I would like to finish school in the same school. And she's like, well, I'm still moving. So, it was kind of basically homeless. I mean, it was, setting me up like kind of couch surfing at friends' houses to finish high school. So, grade A first class abandonment issues. So it was a lot of chasing, external validation. I mean, I learned very early in life to basically wear the good girl mask and be a people pleaser and focus on everybody else. And, I learned to dim your light. Don't be too good. Like, be good, get good grades, be good at sports, be good at stuff, but don't be too good. Worry about everybody else's feelings, worry about everybody else. And so I was in a very disempowered place. So I was always searching for something to help fill that void internally, because I did not understand how to have a relationship with myself at all. And so it was always searching for something, even to the point of joining the military. I was searching for father figures. I was searching for structure. I was searching for a way to build my confidence.
So what made you, because I think that's fascinating that you didn't want to carry on and go with your mother and carry on. So there must have something there said, I need to finish school, which for me, that says a lot about your mindset. That says a lot about how you think and how you do stuff. So that is a really powerful gift that you've done, not to move on and not to move on again. And what age were you then when you did that?
16.
Wow, that's incredible to actually do that.
I had a very strong inner rebel. And so that was always very interesting, balancing that strong energy, and keeping that pushed to the side when I'm wearing this good girl mask, playing that role of fitting into what society is telling me I should be or who I should be.
So so you did that, as you say, couch surfing for a few years. I've got different images in my head of you jumping on the couch doing that sort of stuff. But what happened to make you just suddenly go, I need to be in the military? A lot of my friends, a lot of my US friends have been in the military. So I got a really good, rich understanding of what happens when you go. So what was that sort of anchor point that went, I think the military might be for me?
To some degree, I think that was kind of always an inevitable part of my story, coming from a very strong military family. Even though I wasn't close with my dad, he was in the Army Reserves. We have a rich military history in our family. And so, it was kind of one of those things that was just kind of always on the side as an option. And actually, I was 22 when I joined. So I didn't join. You would think, right, that right after high school I would join, but I didn't. I went to college because it was a should. It was expected. You get out of high school, coming from families who not everybody went to college, you go to college. But after 2 years, I was like, this is not for me. I don't know what I want. This is just not working out. So I took a few years off, and it was good. It gave me an opportunity to get to know myself better. But at that same time, I'm always in this state of motion. And I think I reached a sort of a stagnation with myself, my growth, my career, at 19 years old, like making big changes. And then, by 22, it's just kind of the same. And I'm like, it's time for a big change. I'm searching for something again. And so, joined the Army and did chemical and biological warfare detection. And of course, 9/11 happened. And so I was deployed a lot. So.
So how long were you in the military for? And tell me about the gifts that you learned along the way, because there must have been lots of insights that made you suddenly think, wow, this is good, and this gives me a little bit more structure about my life. But tell me about what happened along that journey.
Absolutely. So when I was in the Army, it was interesting because I had the lowest lows and the highest highs. And it really was about who I was surrounded with and who my leadership was at the time, was the difference between how I was showing up and who I was being. So there was a lot in that journey for me in getting to know myself. So I think early on, it's a lot of that building that relationship with yourself. So I originally enlisted for 4 years. And so you go through basic training and AIT, which is your, school for your job, and where they break you down and build you back up. And it was like, that was my first taste of learning that you can do absolutely anything that you put your mind to. There was no way that I ever would have thought I'd be running 6 miles and singing cadence and, being an expert marksman and, just all the different things. That was very empowering. Then I got to my first duty station and things took a turn because I have never been one to engage in sort of junior high social politics. And that still permeates even in the military. So, I don't play the social games and the ego stroking, and that's just not how I work. So when you get labeled the black sheep, I was like, wow, it's exactly like when I was in elementary school and middle school. Here I am, the black sheep again, because I don't play those games. But then, so there was a lot of learning about how to create my own tribe, because it's like, all right, this is not ideal. So I created a family with the people that I felt connected with. And so there was a lot of beautiful lessons there. Like, okay, we don't have to, be hanging out with people that are not aligned with us, that we can still create these ways for us to shine and be nourished. So that was kind of my first exposure to community and having a tribe, which was amazing, which is something I'm all about now. I was kind of the lone wolf. I was, a lot of alphas, especially alpha women, tend to kind of go solo quite often. So that was me. I was like doing my own thing. Then later, I ended up getting the most amazing leader, and he really saw through everyone else's stories about me and got to know the real me. And that's when I started to shine, because I had leadership that was very supportive of my gifts and very supportive of my talents. And it was just amazing. It just like the veil lifted, and all of a sudden everybody could see, wow, we underestimated her. She's amazing. What's happening? What's going on? So that was really the biggest thing too, is understanding that you needed to have the right mentor, the right leadership in order to bring the best out in people. And so I think being able to walk in the shoes of someone who needed to have a leader like that before I myself could step into the role now of being the leader of my business, my brand, my message, my mission.
So tell me about your mentor, because I'm really fascinated by that. What things actually happened at those particular moments that your mentor saw something in you, which I think is awesome, because we've all had people in our lives that give us something and we go, wow, that was incredible. But for someone to actually go, you have potential to be someone, that must have really pushed you up. What actually happened at that specific time, and what did you learn, and what did you know, and where did you sort of jump to straight away after that?
I think the biggest thing was his willingness to reject what everyone else said about me, because that's all it was, is you get 1 or 2 key people within the junior high social politics of a company, which is what
Mhm.
we were, who
Yep.
doesn't like you, but because they're in a position of social influence or leadership influence,
Mhm.
that they basically get everybody on their side, right? Like, and it's unfortunate that in corporate leadership or even military dynamics and leadership that still permeates, but that's just the way people function.
Yeah, of course it does.
So,
It happens everywhere.
right, it happens everywhere, no matter what the size of the company.
Yeah.
There's just the social politics and the game playing, and it's unfortunate. So he came into the unit, and no matter what the other people were telling him about me, he stepped up and leaned in to get to know me himself and arrive at his own conclusions.
Mhm.
And when he actually got to know me, he was like, holy crap, you're amazing.
Mhm.
Like, getting to know all the gifts, all the skills, all the talents that nobody else took the time to get to know. They're just like, oh, she's just whatever the box was, whatever the label
Yeah. Yeah.
was. No matter how hard I worked, it was unfortunate because no matter how hard I worked, as soon as you have a stigma assigned to you,
Yeah.
that's it.
Mhm.
So, especially in a business situation, which, the military is a business. It really is.
It is. It is fundamentally a business, and it's not corporate business as we know, but it's still fundamentally a business of type. But it's. I'm interested in that area because that obviously made you and
Mhm.
switched you. There's something that actually had happened at that point and just pushed you and drove you forward, and it's almost like someone believed in you,
Mhm.
and that made you start to think and push you forward. So, what were the key learning things that you learned from that, just to step fast forward out of that into where you are now? Because that's fascinating as well.
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing was how much, again, having somebody see the best in you that you don't always see in yourself, and really nurturing all the gifts. So
Mhm.
here I am in the middle of Iraq, in the middle of a war. We're doing convoy rescue missions and, avoiding ambushes and all the
Yeah.
things. And yet it was actually nurtured, not only my leadership and my structure and my um, logistics and my strategy, but also my empathy.
Mhm.
Also, really connecting to everyone. Every time we would visit a platoon anywhere in country, I would go through and just listen to everyone's problems and be supportive in that way. And it was like, again, being able to step up into that next level of leadership. And again,
Mhm.
that leader did that for me. He got to know me personally, learning about all this stuff, and so it was really amazing that now in my business, I get to use both aspects of that. I get to
Mhm.
use the fact that I have this high sensitivity, high empathy, and the fact that I'm a high sensation seeker, which is that ambition, that drive, to do
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
things. And so it's that beautiful balance, which is a lot of that alpha energy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and it's really good for leadership, having both sides. That's that balance that I talk about. That's what allows these women that I work with to shift from intimidating to influential leaders.
Mhm. And I think it's all to do with the right communication internally as well as externally. So, describe to the listeners and the people watching right now, what do you actually do? Describe your what you are and what you're actually doing right now.
As far as working with my clients,
Yeah, describe with your clients, but describe in sort of rich detail what you actually specifically do, how you do what you do.
the magic, I
The
see.
magic, the secret sauce.
The secret
Because what I
sauce.
want to do is really understand that, but also the one of the reasons I do this is because I want to feed forward and give golden nuggets back, and like a trail of breadcrumbs, so people can actually pick it up and go, "Wow, that's good. I like that. I love that. How can I adapt that into my own life?"
Yeah, absolutely. I am a huge proponent of leading by example. So everything that I share in my book, it's my journey that I share
Mhm.
and the big powerful lessons along the way. And it's the same thing in the work that I do with my clients, but I practice what I preach. I implement what I teach. It's all stuff I do every day, And it's a learning trial and error and being very present in the process, that every single lesson I learn, I'm immediately sharing that with my audience, with my clients, because I'm so present with what am I doing, because I am here to be that guide for others, so just leaning into it. So yeah, I practice it every day. And so what I've discovered is it's 3 core pillars to focus on in this journey for myself and obviously for the people I work with. So the first layer is working on the beliefs. But of course, it's not as simple as just going right at, okay, so we have a limiting belief that says I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, or a belief that says, hard work equals success, or I've got to prove my worth or desirability. It's not just reprogramming the beliefs, because again, I'm all about get to the root. So it's really what is underneath that, creating the beliefs. So that's the stuff that I lean into healing. So, I invest in coaches, mentors, spiritual advisors, all the different people to help support working through healing those inner worthiness wounds that come from our relationship with our parents, that come from that old programming. Because like I said, my trauma was actually childhood. We learn how to cope. We learn our basic toolkit in childhood. And so we've got to heal that stuff, but it doesn't have to be long and drawn out and difficult, especially if you're already really successful. We can just go in, hit the thing, and move up, right? Like big upgrades quickly. But I think that's the big thing, is not just looking at the symptom, which is the belief. It's making sure we're going to the appropriate root and healing the right stuff that is that are creating the beliefs. Then the next foundational pillar is boundaries. Boundaries. A lot of people talk about boundaries, but most people really don't understand what boundaries are. And boundaries have nothing to do with your relationship with other people. I think that is the most mind-blowing concept that I share, because most gurus talk about boundaries and you got to say no to other people, you got to hold to this. But all of those relationships in your life, every single relationship in your life, with your partner, with your kids, with your parents, with your clients, your coworkers, whatever it is, even time, money, all the other resources, all of those relationships, your relationship with your business even, are a reflection of your relationship with yourself.
Of course. Yeah.
And so the boundaries are about you. Too many times too, people teach boundaries and it's like holding to our boundaries is trying to control other people. So we're actually giving our power away. And I'm like, no, it's you have a bubble and you are sovereign leader over what you allow in your bubble. We're not controlling anybody else. We're simply choosing to respond based on our boundaries and our standards of nope, not going to allow that. But we've got to get clear. And really, all of those boundaries need to be applied to our relationship with ourselves. Because again, how can we expect someone else to respect us if we don't respect ourselves?
Yeah.
Right? How can we expect someone to be authentic or not disconnected or not avoidant, right? With our partners or something. And yet we're doing that with ourselves, right? No dishonesty. That's a great boundary to have. But if we're not getting absolutely radically honest with ourselves, again, we're not able to truly hold to that. And that is why I'm discipline's kind of a lie. Because it's really boundaries with ourselves. We can, force through negative association, force ourselves into sticking to something. But the reason we don't stick to it long-term is because of the boundaries. Because again, boundaries is a skill set we learn as children. But what's cool about that is you can learn new skills around boundaries. But what feeds the boundaries are going back to the beliefs. Are you worthy and deserving of healthy relationship with yourself? Right.
And it's also how can you respect yourself, because we all have those anchor points in our lives where we saw that certain moment that either changed us for the good, bad, or indifferent. And how we're brought up. I was lucky enough. My upbringing was pretty good. My parents loved me, and they gave me as much. But you also have certain points which you look back and go, well, if I change that, that would help me to gone to university at a stage of my life rather than going out partying or whatever it might have been. But understand that you just have to go back and maybe adapt, reprogram, or accept. And once you accept that, then you properly lay those things to rest. And then you can actually move on forward and go, okay, I respect that now, but now let's work on me. So what sort of things do you do to help people start to see themselves in their present state?
Absolutely. It is the biggest stuff is a lot of this celebrating the successes. There's this a wall that so many of us have that we can be amazing, super high performing, have all of these amazing successes. And we don't really give ourselves permission to fully receive the gifts of that, the gifts of the experience, like really celebrating, like, oh my gosh, I got what I want. And because we're not, again, there's kind of hiding in the background are some of those stories that will come up that say, oh yeah, you did that. You were so awesome. You got what you wanted. And we can kind of go through the motions of celebrating that. And yet there's still this voice in the background that says, wait till they find out you're a fraud. You're an imposter. Who do you think you are to do that? Right? Like, again, it's just going back to those beliefs and those stories. And so it's a lot of this leaning into giving ourselves permission to feel all the emotions, all the thoughts that are coming up with our forward momentum, with our success, with our progress. And that's where the balance piece comes in. The balance is that last important pillar, and it's balancing a variety of things. We're balancing not just focusing on positive, not just focusing on negative. Like, it's a balance where it's the light and the dark, the good and the bad, which obviously none of it's bad, but the positive, the negative. And then there's a lot of balance of time and energy. There's a lot of balance of masculine and feminine energy as well, because we need the energetics of success to be an influential leader. So there's a lot of that balance that comes in that I feel like a lot of coaches, mentors, gurus can easily get skewed in just kind of a little bit too narrow of a lane. And they're sort of closing out some of the other stuff. I call it toxic positivity. And obviously that I did not coin that phrase, but I love to refer to that toxic positivity. Like, people get too locked into, performance and results. And that's even some of the toxic hustle. And they're just kind of ignoring the other aspects of our identity that we need to learn how to honor and incorporate into our leadership. Like I said, like the inner rebel, a lot of us learn to wear the good boy mask or the good girl mask and not really be the trailblazer, the maverick, the thought leader, the change maker that we're really, really called to be, because we hide that part. We're like, nah, I don't want to rock the boat too much. So
I think that really brings out your true self when you come out and build that authentic pattern inside you. But out of that and out of the stories we tell ourselves, there's elements of what we should be producing is that trust element. That trust that comes across that I'm not perfect. And all of these leaders out there, or some of these leaders out there, they're on these pedestals as gurus of this, that, and the other. But, they've all had their challenges along the way, but they speak sometimes their authentic self and how they can build up the oxytocin levels, which is that trust chemical. And people look at them and go, that's why when we think of Richard Branson, we go, oh, I quite like him. I know he's had his challenges along the way, but the brain starts to go, a little bit of oxytocin in there makes me feel a bit more trusting. So what brings out success in leaders? What do you think a successful leader looks like? Male, female, doesn't really matter, because I see everyone as powerful, regardless of their ethnicity or whatever, diverse background or whatever. It doesn't really matter as far as I'm concerned. If they can do the job, they do the job. I don't care. That's me, myself, and I. That's how I look at it. But not everyone looks at it the same way as me. But how do you see that right now?
Absolutely. I love that perspective. And I agree with you. I think it's about who the person is being as a leader, not any of the other stuff. Not any of the other stuff. Because again, I've had the most amazing diversity in the people who have believed in me and really helped me to rise up as a leader. And then again, sort of equal diversity in those who were not ideal.
Of course.
In that. But it really is that balance piece. Because, you're talking about that oxytocin and the trust, and all of that is in the emotional spectrum, what falls under, quote unquote, the feminine energy, right? Trust, authenticity, vulnerability. And those are qualities every leader needs to have. We've got to be able to trust ourselves, trust our team, trust the people that we're leading and delegating things to. And so the best qualities for a leader is someone who is so clear on who they are and has such an amazing relationship with themselves that they have this confidence that they just radiate. And that confidence, it doesn't create the intimidation, because it's so authentic that it actually elevates and inspires others to be better. And they're very unconditional in who they are being. It doesn't matter what's going on around them. They're not reacting. Okay, shit's hitting the fan. Cool. What do we need to do to work through it, right? Like, there's the emotional intelligence, and their relationship with themselves is so good and so clear that they're just not affected by all those conditions.
So, question for you, quick fire question as I'm thinking of it, because I think it's so who do you see right now is that person? Who do you look and go, well, that's that person, no matter who it is, but who do you think that person is?
Wow.
Out there in the limelight now.
Oh goodness. There's a lot of really amazing people. Obviously, we just lost Ruth Bader Ginsburg. That was one of those people. I mean, regardless of any of the personal drama, Angelina Jolie is one of those people, with her being such an advocate for children around the world and things like that. And, you brought up Richard Branson, and he is one of those really amazing, just super balanced people who's really vulnerable about his story and his challenges. And there's a lot of other amazing, amazing people as well who are that same way. I just see people stepping up every day and leading with their story of overcoming challenge to get to where they are, and doing it in a way that felt good, not stepping on people along the way. And sometimes they're like, yep, and I was that person who did do some of those nasty things along the way. I mean, even thinking about myself, sort of having that downward spiral over 10 years after I got out of the military, because I was building a life of shoulds and going down this rabbit hole of just avoiding my power and avoiding myself till my rock bottom moment. I was not very nice. And so I went through a season in my life where I was so far removed from being the best version of myself. And I wasn't a good friend, and I was definitely not a good wife, and I was not a good parent, like all of those things. But to come out the other side and say, yep, that's my story, and I've learned from it, and I honor that I was working with the toolkit that I had. And there's so many leaders out there today who don't hide the fact that they're not perfect, because obviously that's truly influential, authentic leadership, is owning all of it. Owning all of it.
So what do you think in this mad, crazy world that we're in right now, with all of this stuff that people cough in and wearing funny masks and whatever else, like we've gone into level 5, we're going into level 5 complete lockdown. What are the challenges and what can be learned from these business leaders out here to really step up to the mark and push forward and make sure that they've got all of these remote workers working around the globe or in their town or wherever, whether it's an SME or whether it's a corporate? What are these tools that they can have as a sort of an inspiring leader just to break through this COVID stuff and feed forward?
Well, I think the most important thing during times of challenge is being more connected to people holistically, right? Of course, we are building businesses and we have team members and all of those things, but life as we knew it no longer exists.
Of
And so
course.
that's obviously affecting people on multiple levels because people are now having to be, homeschooling their kids or, just juggling things differently than they did before. And also understanding that a very amazing gift came from this process, that a lot of people got to sort of get out of the rat race a little bit and get to know themselves and get to know their families. But that can bring up some head trash, that can bring up some old wounds, that can just bring up some stuff. So I think it's having that high level of empathy and understanding for your employees, for your team, saying, hey, how can I support you? Because you're being amazing, or even having those tough conversations that like, hey, I see the results here of, maybe some things are not working, maybe some mistakes are happening. What's going on with you? Like getting to know the people and getting to know what's going on behind the scenes, because that's the stuff that they're bringing with them into their work, whether it's at home or in the office. They're bringing the challenges in their marriage, with their kids, with their health. All of that stuff is coming with them. Same thing with leadership, right? Again, if we come from trauma or instability, or even if we had the most amazing parents, there's still generational patterns and stories that we learn, that you need to fit into a certain role, play it safe. Maybe, again, for somebody like me, well, you're a girl, you need to, this is your lane, not over here. That's not what you're meant for, like whatever that programming is, again, comes into how they show up to do their job. And so the best leaders are the ones that take the time to truly get to know their employees, their team, their collaborators, same as that leader did for me when I was in the Army.
And that was my next question, actually, as I'm thinking of it, because it's always best to ask and spontaneous in the moment. You had that leader that really inspired you and saw through everything that everyone else was telling them, but they actually saw it and going, no, I ignore that, and I find out the real Stacy. Let me find out who she is and what she's about. And then he found out what triggers can actually go bang, bang, bang. That's going to motivate you, and that's going to do that. So as you're now almost in that place, what could you do to feed back to not you, but people like you at those particular times? How could you say, this is what you could do to get yourself out of those particular challenges?
Are we talking to the leaders in terms of supporting their people, or are we talking to the people who are feeling kind of stuck?
Just for people that are feeling quite stuck, they're in that 20-year age group or whatever it might be, the millennials or this age group that are going through. But, certain golden nuggets that you can just feed forward back to people based on your experience of what you learned and from your mentor that saw you and went bang, straight through to it.
I think there's two aspects to this, because we've got the internal component and we've got the external component. So the first things that you can do, and I love the fact that coaching and mentoring and personal development and professional development is becoming such the norm now, that if something feels off within how you feel in the workplace. And granted, for myself, I always felt like the square peg in the round hole. Like I never fit in professionally anywhere until I became an entrepreneur.
Yeah, of course.
Like it was just kind of the inevitable. But regardless, if something feels off and you're feeling less than fulfilled in your career, the great place to start is internally, because sometimes we're trying to fill the internal void with something external, and that never works. I went down that rabbit hole: the food, the drugs, the alcohol, the working all the time, the cars, the vacation, like the stuff, And, that never worked. The money, no, it's not going to fill the void. So doing the inner work first. And,
I ask you, what questions do you need to ask yourself?
I think the first thing is just, am I willing to take responsibility for what the results that I get in my life? Because it really is being willing to, am I willing to take ownership of myself, who I'm being, what I'm creating in the world, and what I'm experiencing in the world? Because ultimately fulfillment is an internal game. And so they can lean into that process first in any capacity, whether it's self-help books, workshops, whatever, working with a coach or a mentor and doing some of that inner work. Sometimes it's therapy too. I loved my trauma therapist, right? Like sometimes it's therapy, So whatever that looks like for you, starting the inner process. But as that changes and you gain more clarity and understanding about who you are because you're building a relationship with yourself, sometimes those external dynamics are going to need to change too. Maybe you're like, wow, I feel this way about my job because it's not fulfilling me. It is soul sucking. Maybe it is all of the wrong leadership, not helping me to rise up and be better and utilize my gifts. Maybe it's, the militant negative reinforcement type of leadership where you can say, okay, am I going to be bold enough to say, I need to move somewhere else in the company because you like the company, the ethics of it, the integrity there, or is it time for me to find something else?
Talking about gifts, if you had 5 minutes of a superpower, what would you do and how would you use it? But it's 5 minutes. Any superpower, but it's based on you as a person. You don't know until you take this magic pill, like Alice in Wonderland. She took it and she grew massive, but she wasn't. But if you had that 5 minutes of gift, what would that be?
Wow. I appreciate you putting me on the spot with something so expansive. Wow. Like, seriously. Oh, what would that be? 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
It can be the obvious things, but it can be the stuff that you do in work.
I feel like 5 minutes of being able to step into and actually have a conversation with my future self would be so, so powerful. Because obviously my journey is about me, my impact is about me, and I understand that the more I'm in my space of leadership, the more I am able to impact those around me. Right. So, that's going to create, like the whole give a man a fish or, teach him how to fish, right? Like that's my opportunity to learn how to fish better and create the better impact rather than trying in that 5 minutes to directly impact a bunch of other people, because that helps me build that confidence and that trust in that knowing, beyond trust, absolutely knowing my highest self.
Awesome. That's incredible. So good. I'm glad I caught you out in a question that you might have
that was really good.
Stacy, it's been absolutely phenomenal. I really enjoyed this interview. And how can people find out more about you and your lovely, wonderful book that you've got?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. This has been such a blast, such an honor. And I love the out of the blue questions. Everyone can find me at stacyraske.com. That's pretty much the hub for everything. You can link to my amazing Facebook community there for ambitious women founders and CEOs. You can get the link to my book there. And that'll take you straight to Amazon. I'm actually recording the audio version. So it'll be on Audible here hopefully by December. That'll all be good to go, since I know a lot of people like the audiobooks way better. I think you said that too. So
me, I'm audiobooks all over. I listen all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, stacyraske.com, and I've got resources there. And
can you spell your surname just for the audio audience out there? Because I just completely balls it up. Sorry.
Okay. So it is STACYRASKE.com.
Awesome.
StacyRaske.com. But yes, we can always add the links, and hopefully for those who've enjoyed this, who are listening, they can find me there. So
we'll add all the links and everything else in the show notes after we do this. And it's been an absolute pleasure. And I really appreciate your time today. It's been absolutely wonderful. You've shared so much knowledge. And what I want is to people to just take one golden nugget or many golden nuggets out there from the conversation that we've had today. So again, I thank you so much.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you. This has been such a blast. And I think the best nugget I always like to leave is that everything that you need is already inside you, and nothing can get in your way but yourself.
Totally and absolutely concur with that. Totally agree.